Well, just as I had it all planned out and all ready, Chris tells me that he's on a proper documentary, and the problem here is that I can't play you any of the clips because the computer that we play it off, Chris is already on. So I will, but believe me, this is enough enough content to basically keep us going for the next hour and a half, definitely on the show. When you watch a TV program and the opening credits, it's the host walking up hills and walking up mountains. Well, that's exactly what we've got with Chris at the moment. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Gareth. Yeah, good to be back with you again.
You really shouldn't have told us about this. But if you have a look, actually, on a serious note, this looks fantastic. It's called Sifting the Evidence. And if you look, Dr. Chris Sinkinson there.
That's me.
And you'll be able to. You see, he sounded as shocked as I did when he told us about the documentary. So this is all because we've got our brand new feature here, ladies and gentlemen. Now, are you ready for this? And it is called not Dishing the Dirt, which I thought it was meant to be called, Digging in the Dirt. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Gareth. Great to be with you again for another episode of Digging in the Dirt.
Chris from Moorlands College, if you don't know, also famous for documentaries such as Sifting the Evidence.
What do you mean, such as? Oh, yeah, we've got a history of Moorlands film. We've got a film with living Christianity on politics in the contemporary age. Gareth, I could go on.
You could go on, you could. But I'd say probably most famous for Sifting the Evidence, Part 1. Part 2, that was all right, but Part 1, my favourite.
And as for Part 3... we were really running out of budget then.
And do not get me started on 4, 5, 6, and 7, and 8, where basically
out this autumn,
they just sent him to the city centre of Birmingham, rustling through skips. Clearly, the budget had all been blown.
Reputation.
So, really looking forward to this because there's so much evidence out there, evidence that you can touch, things that you can see, which were around in biblical times. And you don't hear about any of these. I mean, to be honest, apart from Sifting the Evidence, Part 1 and 2, I have not watched any documentaries about this. There tends to be a lot about Egyptian times. There tends to be a lot about, artifacts from the royal family from 400-500 years ago. But that's about it. So we decided we would change that. And we would speak to Chris every Monday about this kind of stuff. So I will try my very best to sort of describe what I'm seeing. And then Chris will sort of, I guess, tell us once we played a song and we come back to him of what we've actually got. So, Chris, over to you.
Great. Well, Gareth, look, for this morning, now in finest radio style, I'm showing an object, but it would be really helpful, Gareth, if you describe it and tell me what it is so that our listeners can get a feel for what it is we're looking at together. So I'm holding it, and I'm going to ask you also, when you've described it, can you take a guess at how old it is?
So this to me, and when you watch the video back, you'll be able to see it. It's like a shell. So if you were to find on the beach, I can't remember what the shell is, but it's the semicircle-ish. I'm not describing this very well, but basically a shell that, those ones that you used to say that you can hear the sea through. It's a bit like that, sort of.
That's not bad.
A cockle shell.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what it actually. I'll tell you a little bit later on what it actually is. But it is made of pottery. It's manufactured, so it's not shell. It's human made. And I'll tell you what as well. It's very old. Okay. Can you take a guess at how old this might be? It's like Antiques Roadshow. This.
It doesn't look very old, but presumably because you brought it on this feature, it would have to be several hundred years old. But we're talking about biblical times, so I'd say it's probably 1,000 years old.
Okay, well, I'm going to triple that. It's at least 2,700 years old. Could be a little bit older than that, but 2,700 years old.
So it almost looks actually like the BFG's ear.
That's a fantastic description. I'll tell you what it is later on, but that is a very good description.
So that is definitely being the title of the video this morning. The BFG's ear. So, what we're going to do is we'll come back to Chris soon. Now, I know this is probably absolutely impossible for the listener to do, but if from my description you have any ideas at all of what it could be, from my description, then first of all, you're a genius. But secondly, send them through and let me know, and we will give you a mention. So the number on WhatsApp is 0161 511 9555. Now, what I will say is that my prediction of the usage of this, what it will be used for, I think probably to collect some sort of liquid. Maybe it will be perfect in the garden as maybe a bird feeder.
Okay, it may have multifunctional use, but that's not its purpose 2,800 years ago.
Is it something to hold liquid in?
It can hold liquid. It will hold liquid. That's correct. Yeah.
And the fact that it's got almost a funnel on one side of it, I reckon it would mean that it was to collect liquid and then pour it out again. Maybe. So I tell you what, I reckon this was used for something to do with melting metals and then pouring them back out again. That's a complete guess. But what we will do is we will find out exactly what it was used for after this by Rihanna. But remember, if you'd like to get involved with this feature, I'll tell you what, I'm so confident you won't guess that I will give you Chris's car if you guess it right. Okay, so the number is 0161 511 9555. Genuinely, if you can guess what it's for off my description, I will send you some Connect Radio goodies in the post, because I don't think you'll be able to. No expense spared there, then. This is Connect Radio, and every Monday, so we have had Chris on the show for a while now, and we decided that we wanted to try something different, and we thought, well, two of Chris's passions are theology and also finding artifacts, but not just any artifacts. Oh, no. Usually it tends to be biblical ones. So, without further ado, let's go to Chris right now, who is live from the Moorlands College studios.
Thanks, Gareth. Yeah, and I'm holding in my hand not the ear of the BFG, not an ancient bird feeder. This is a real thing. It's not a replica. This comes from a town called Samaria. So it's a biblical city in the ancient world. And it's at least 2,700 years old. So it goes back to what we would say is the 8th century BC. And it is an oil lamp. That's what this is. It's one of the...
Oh, we've dropped out.
Back at the time of King David.
Dropped out, Chris, just at the very moment that you said it is a...
Well, that was just for suspense.
So it is... Go on.
It is a oil lamp. It is an oil lamp from the time of King David, and around that period, this is how they lit their houses and their rooms. So you were right that it could hold liquid because you could pour the oil in. Would have been olive oil, by the way, from the olive trees. So you put the oil in, and the pinch point here would have the wick hanging out, and that would burn for maybe an hour or two as the oil would burn and give them light in their home in the evenings. So this is the earliest kind of oil lamp, and they often appear on an archaeological dig because they were like light bulbs, you know. And so as they throw the light bulb away, this one's got a bit of a crack actually in one corner. These would be buried in the soil because pottery would survive well. So for thousands of years, these could lie in the ground. An Israelite, just think of this for a moment, right? This actual one was held by an Israelite around the time of maybe King David, King Solomon, and it was used to light their home. So that's an oil lamp, and oil lamps changed in style over the years. I've got a couple of others with me here as well. These aren't quite so old, because at the time of Jesus, oil lamps started to look like this. They were closed in, a little bit more compact. And then after the time of the New Testament, after Jesus, they started to look like this. This is called a Byzantine oil lamp. So you see how they change in style as the years go by. And eventually, of course, we end up with light bulbs and now LED light bulbs. Now, Gareth, I think these are really important because they connect us back to the ancient world. Oil lamps are very important in the Bible We talk about keeping our lamps lit. In fact, Jesus told a story about how we've got to be ready for when Jesus will come back, and we need to keep our oil lamps burning. And he said you needed to keep an extra little pot of oil ready so you wouldn't run out of oil and then be caught short. Well, that's a little message for us, that we need to be ready because Jesus, who is the same yesterday, today, and forever, is one day coming back. And whether we have oil lamps like this or a light bulb in the ceiling, Jesus remains the same, and he's one day coming back, and we need to be ready. So I love the archaeology, as you know, Gareth. I love going back to the ancient world, but I don't stay there. I'm also looking forward to the future and to the return of our Lord Jesus and to that little lesson he told us with the oil and the lamp.
Absolutely love it. Do you know, I'd have never have guessed. I did think that the tapered end bit, it was to maybe pour something out, but it is really interesting. So that would have been, it's such an age. And when you find things like this, are you allowed to take them? So, for example, I presume you dug up that one.
No, this is purchased from Samaria using there is an Antiquities license that allows things, artifacts to be bought and sold. So it's a little while ago this was bought. So I've excavated in Israel, but not actually in Samaria. So I ought to say that. And in terms of taking things out, if you dig something up, or if you were walking somewhere abroad and you found some pottery, you mustn't bring it out of the country unless you've got the license to do so. Okay, it's really important that. I don't know if you heard in the news, Gareth, that some people got into some awful trouble in one of the Middle Eastern countries where they did actually pick up some pottery, carried it back to the airport in their suitcase, and got into trouble. Such trouble, they got a prison sentence for picking up some broken pottery. So just to warn the listeners, make sure you're doing it properly with a license. In Israel, for example, there's a proper Israeli Antiquities Authority license you need to remove things from the country.
So what would be the rule if, for example, I'm taking my imaginary dog out for a walk in a field, and if it digs up some coins, do I have to actually tell the government about that? Do I call the police? What do I do?
Well, you need to talk to the landowner. That's the first thing. So the landowner's going to have a claim on it, and that's very important. The second thing is something called the Portable Antiquities Scheme, PAS. And if you Google it, Portable Antiquities Scheme, there'll be a local sort of worker with the Portable Antiquities Scheme you speak to, and they arrange all the legal side of it. Now, here's the thing, okay, Gareth. If you find one coin, you may well just be able to claim that. It depends on who owns the land, but one coin is one thing. If you find two coins or more, you find coins, well, that enters into the category of treasure trove. And this is actually what I would have said it belongs to the Queen, but I can't say that now, obviously, but it belongs to the King now. It belongs to the Crown, and therefore it has to go through a legal process to settle who has the right to it. So we found a whole pile of gold coins in the well, I'm not allowed to say where. I was about to say where then, but last autumn.
Be careful.
Dig. And the thing about this gold hoard is it had to go through the Portable Antiquities Scheme. And right now, the British Museum are assessing the value, and the value is going to partly depend on ownership. So it's a complicated legal process, actually, Gareth. So yeah, if your dog sniffs up a pile of gold coins, Google Portable Antiquities Scheme and do it properly.
Very interesting.
I don't want Connect Radio getting into any trouble.
So what would happen if, I guess, it's public land? Do you then, is it the local council?
Yeah, even public land, there will be some claim of ownership or responsibility for it. So you need to check that out. It'll be local council probably in that case. And if you do find something, you will probably still get a portion of its value, but it will depend on other factors. You can't just stick it in your pocket or put it on eBay. You need to check it out.
Do you know, I've learned something there, because I genuinely thought that if I was out and I saw something in a field, I would just think, oh, well, finders, keepers, losers, weepers, as they say. Right. But clearly, and as you said, whatever you do, if you're abroad and you find something, please do not just think, I'll put it in my suitcase. Nobody will know, because they will know. And then you could end up, like Chris said, actually in prison because of you finding an item and wanting to keep it. And as well, I suppose there is part of it that says, well, actually, other people need to enjoy this. So if it is a very rare item, I mean, for example, if you're in a park in Stockport and you find the Holy Grail, would it be better off having it on your windowsill at home, or would it be better off having it in a proper secure place where other people can enjoy it? And I'm sure if you were to find an artifact, like you said, whoever bought it, whoever took claim of it, they would make sure, you would hope anyway, that you get at least a few quid for it.
Yeah, and there are laws about that as well. So there is a portion that you would receive depending on the ownership of the land. So yeah, don't worry about the money value. Hey, look, if anybody's watched Indiana Jones, they will know the line, this belongs in a museum. This is not treasure, but it belongs in the Stockport City Museum. And yeah, just that lesson from you there, Gareth, that this is for public knowledge and enjoyment, not for private wealth. I think it's important to remind ourselves of that.
Now, this will sound like a real Alan Partridge line, but if you're ever over here, Chris, I could take you to a fantastic hat museum, which is the Stockport Hat Museum. So maybe sometime we can go and look at antique hats, if that tickles your fancy.
I think, Gareth, we could do a live broadcast from the Stockport Hat Museum. I mean, that would be gripping radio.
Thank you very much, Chris. Remember, Moorlands College, search them out online, and Sifting the Evidence, The World of the Bible by Dr. Chris Sinkington. That's him, the man that you can hear right now. You'll be able to watch it. It's free of charge, both parts together. And genuinely, I'm going to be watching that tonight, if my wife wants it or not.